We do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. In 2015, a seemingly ordinary photograph of a dress took the internet by storm. But this was no ordinary dress. It sparked a fierce debate that divided the world. Some people argued the dress was blue and black, while others were equally convinced it was white and gold. Take a look at the picture on the screen. What is the color of the dress? Is it blue and black or white and gold? If you look at it and see blue and black, but your friend insists it's white and gold, what will be your reaction? You both stare at the same picture, yet you see completely different things. How could that be? This phenomenon left many scratching their heads, struggling to understand how two people could have such opposing views. What's fascinating here isn't just the dress itself, but what it reveals about human perception. Our brains process colors based on various factors, including the light around us and how our eyes interpret that light. This means that our unique experiences can shape how we see the world, sometimes leading to surprising disagreements, even over something as simple as a dress. This debate reminds us that our perceptions can be vastly different, and that reality isn't always as clear-cut as we think. We often think of our senses as reliable guides to the world around us. However, as we've seen through the popularity of visual illusions, our perceptual systems can be easily tricked. These illusions show us things that seem one way, only to reveal a surprising truth. For example, two lines can look like they're different lengths, but when measured, they turn out to be exactly the same. Or we might glance at a still image and feel like it's moving, even though we know it shouldn't. Typically, the story we hear about these illusions is that they take advantage of the little quirks in how our brains process information. They expose moments when what we perceive doesn't quite match reality. However, there's an underlying assumption in this explanation that if our perceptual system were functioning correctly, it would show us things exactly as they are. But is that really the case? What if our perceptions were never perfectly accurate to begin with? Perhaps our brains don't just process what's out there, they interpret, filter, and sometimes even distort information based on our experiences, expectations, and even emotions. This leads us to question the reliability of our perceptions and consider how much of what we see is shaped by our minds rather than by the world itself. Understanding this can open our eyes to the fascinating and often surprising ways we experience reality. The deeper truth about perception is that it never gives us a direct view of objective reality. Instead, all our perceptions are active constructions, essentially our brains making educated guesses about the world around us. It's as if we're peering through a sensory veil, forever obscured from the true nature of reality. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to solve a mystery. You gather clues, piece them together, and come up with your best explanation. But the reality of the mystery is always just out of reach. In the same way, our brains take in sensory information and interpret it. But this interpretation isn't always a perfect reflection of what's really there. Visual illusions serve as fractures in this illusionary matrix, offering us fleeting glimpses into this deeper truth. They remind us that our perceptions can be deceiving, and that what we think we see might be more complicated than we realize. These moments challenge our understanding of reality, urging us to question not just what we perceive, but also how we perceive it. Ultimately, they invite us to explore the intricate dance between our minds and the world, revealing that perception is an artful construction rather than a straightforward window into reality. Let's consider the experience of color, like the bright red of the coffee mug sitting on my desk. At first glance, the mug appears undeniably red. Its redness feels as real as its roundness and solidity. When we look at it, we assume that these qualities are genuine, inherent properties of the mug itself. Our senses tell us this is a vibrant red, and our minds readily accept it as a fact of the world. But here's where it gets intriguing. What we perceive as colour is actually the result of complex interactions between light, the object, and our visual system. The mug reflects certain wavelengths of light that our eyes pick up, and our brains interpret this information, leading us to experience the colour red. This process is not just a simple detection, it's an intricate dance of perception. Our brains analyze and construct the experience based on the light conditions surrounding colours and even our own emotions or memories. So while the mug does seem red, that redness is not merely a property of the mug itself, it's a product of the way we perceive it. In this way, our experience of colour becomes a reminder that what we perceive might not be the objective truth, but rather a beautifully complex construction shaped by the interplay between the world and our minds. This realization encourages us to appreciate the richness of our experiences while recognizing the intricate processes behind them. Since the time of Isaac Newton, we've learned that colors don't actually exist in the external world. Instead, they're constructed by our brains from different wavelengths of colorless electromagnetic radiation. When light strikes an object, it reflects certain wavelengths that our brains interpret as color. In essence, colors are a clever trick that evolution has devised to help us navigate and make sense of our surroundings, especially under changing lighting conditions. But here's the fascinating part. Humans can only perceive a tiny slice of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. This spectrum stretches from the low end of infrared wavelengths, which we cannot see, to the high end of ultraviolet wavelengths, which are also invisible to us. The colours we experience, the vibrant reds and deep blues, are all derived from this narrow band of reality known as the visible spectrum. So, every colour we perceive, every hue that fills our visual world is based on this limited range of wavelengths. It's as if we're living in a world of vibrant paintings, all crafted from a small palette of colours. This perspective not only deepens our understanding of colour, but also highlights the limitations of our perception, reminding us that what we see is merely a fraction of the broader reality that exists beyond our sensory abilities. It prompts us to wonder what other forms of reality are out there, just beyond our perception, waiting to be discovered. Understanding these concepts reveals a profound truth. Our perceptual experiences cannot serve as a complete representation of an external objective world. They are simultaneously less than that and more than that. The reality we experience, the way things appear to us, is not a direct reflection of what actually exists outside. Instead, it's a sophisticated construction crafted by our brains, designed to help us navigate our environments effectively. This construction is shaped by various factors, including our unique sensory inputs, past experiences, and even individual brain chemistry. If my brain processes information differently from yours, whether due to genetics, personal experiences, or even cultural influences, then the reality I perceive may vary significantly from your own. This leads us to the fascinating idea that each of us experiences a slightly different version of reality, molded by the unique ways our brains interpret the world. So, while we might be looking at the same coffee mug or watching the same sunset, the colours we see, the emotions we feel, and the meanings we derive can differ dramatically. This notion encourages us to embrace the rich tapestry of human experience, recognizing that our perceptions are shaped by both our biology and our personal journeys. It invites us to foster empathy and understanding, knowing that others may see the world through a lens that is just as valid, even if it appears different from our own. In Plato's allegory of the cave, we encounter a powerful metaphor for the nature of perception and reality. Imagine prisoners chained in a dark cave facing a blank wall. They have spent their entire lives seeing only the flickering shadows cast by objects passing in front of a fire behind them. For these prisoners, the shadows represent their only reality. They even name these fleeting images, believing them to represent the true essence of the world. This allegory illustrates how our limited perceptions shape our understanding of reality, emphasizing that there is often more to the truth than meets the eye. Fast forward 1,000 years to the Arabian scholar Ibn al-Haytham, who offered a groundbreaking perspective on perception. He argued that our experiences depend on processes of judgment and inference, asserting that what we perceive is influenced by how we interpret sensory information rather than directly reflecting an objective reality. This idea paved the way for further exploration of the complexities of perception. Immanuel Kant, centuries later, expanded on these thoughts by acknowledging that the chaos of unrestricted sensory data would remain meaningless without being structured by pre-existing concepts or beliefs. He introduced the term noumenon, referring to a thing in itself, Ding an sich, an objective reality that, according to Kant, remains beyond human perception. These insights remind us that our understanding of reality is shaped by the lenses of our minds. Just as the prisoners in Plato's cave catch only shadows of a more complex truth, we too may be constrained by our perceptual limitations, prompting us to question the nature of our reality. Today, these philosophical ideas have gained fresh momentum through theories proposing that the brain functions as a prediction machine. This perspective suggests that our perception of the world and our sense of self within it stems from the brain making predictions about sensory signals. Instead of passively receiving information, our brains actively interpret and predict what we see, hear, and feel based on past experiences and learned patterns. The roots of this concept can be traced back to the late 19th century with Hermann von Helmholtz, a German physicist and physiologist. He suggested that perception is not merely a direct reflection of reality, but rather a process of unconscious inference, meaning our brains constantly make educated guesses about the world, filling in gaps in sensory information based on prior knowledge. By the end of the 20th century, Helmholtz's groundbreaking idea had been embraced and expanded upon by cognitive scientists and artificial intelligence researchers, leading to what is now known as predictive coding, or predictive processing. This theory posits that the brain continually generates predictions about incoming sensory information, comparing these predictions to actual input. When a mismatch occurs, the brain updates its understanding accordingly. This shift in understanding perception as a predictive process has profound implications. It suggests that our experiences are not merely reactions to our surroundings. They are actively constructed interpretations, shaped by our expectations, memories, and prior knowledge. Imagine walking into a dimly lit room. Your brain processes the limited information available, using past experiences to fill in the gaps. If you expect a chair to be in front of you, your brain might predict its presence, even if the lighting obscures it. This exemplifies predictive perception in action, as your brain is actively interpreting and guessing, rather than passively receiving information. Scientists often conceptualize this process through the lens of Bayesian inference, a statistical framework that helps us understand how to update our beliefs based on new data. In this context, both our expectations and incoming sensory information intertwine with uncertainty. Bayesian inference provides a systematic way to refine our understanding of reality by weighing the likelihood of various possibilities, based on the reliability of the signals we receive. Essentially, our brains act like sophisticated scientists, constantly testing hypotheses about the world. When new information arrives, the brain evaluates it, updates its beliefs, and adjusts its predictions accordingly. In the framework of predictive perception, the brain employs Bayesian inference by generating predictions about sensory signals. It doesn't simply wait for information. Instead, it actively anticipates what those signals should be, based on prior experiences and expectations. When these predictions are compared with incoming sensory data, whether from our eyes, ears, or other sensory surfaces, discrepancies, known as prediction errors, arise. These errors signal to the brain that its predictions might need adjustment. For instance, if you expect the coffee mug on your desk to be warm when you pick it up, but it feels cold, this difference alerts your brain to update its understanding of the mug's temperature. By striving to minimize sensory prediction errors at every moment, the brain engages in a form of approximate Bayesian inference, continuously fine-tuning its predictions to create a more accurate representation of reality. This complex interaction illustrates how perception is not a straightforward reflection of the external world, but an ongoing process of predictions and corrections. The brain is always adapting to new information, making our perceptions an ever-evolving blend of expectation and reality. To grasp how this perspective alters our intuitions about the neurological basis of perception, consider the flow of signals in the brain, bottom-up and top-down. Traditionally, if we view perception as a direct window onto an external reality, we might think the content of our perception is primarily conveyed by bottom-up signals from our sensory surfaces. In this view, our senses act as a direct link to the world, presenting an unfiltered account of reality. Top-down signals, coming from higher brain areas, might provide context but are seen as less influential. However, in the context of predictive perception, top-down signals play a much more significant role. They not only fine-tune our experiences, but actively shape them. The brain continuously generates predictions about incoming sensory information, influencing how we interpret and experience the world. In this updated model, perception emerges from the complex dialogue between bottom-up sensory data and top-down expectations. Thus, our perception is as much about what our brains expect to see as it is about what is actually present in the environment. This shift highlights the active role our minds play in shaping our experiences, transforming our understanding of perception from a straightforward process into a sophisticated construction influenced by both our senses and our thoughts. In fact, some researchers describe this phenomenon as controlled hallucination, suggesting that our experiences of reality are not mere reflections of the world, but intricate interpretations crafted by our brains. When we see a red apple, for instance, our perception involves a complex interplay of sensory data and the brain's prior knowledge about what an apple typically looks like. This perspective emphasizes the brain's role as an active participant in shaping our experiences. It challenges the traditional notion that we are merely passive recipients of sensory information, revealing that our perceptions result from a constant negotiation between expectations and actual encounters. This understanding enriches our comprehension of human perception, highlighting its complexity and the powerful influence of cognitive processes. The term controlled hallucination may seem counterintuitive, as people often associate hallucinations with false perceptions, contrasting sharply with what is considered veridical or true to reality normal perception. However, the prediction machine view of perception suggests a fascinating continuity between hallucinations and typical perception. In this framework, both arise from the interaction between top-down predictions and bottom-up sensory data. During normal perception, our brain continuously generates predictions that are effectively calibrated by incoming sensory signals, keeping our perceptions appropriately linked to their real-world causes. Conversely, during hallucinations, this balance is disrupted. The brain's predictions still occur, but the sensory signals fail to provide the necessary feedback to ground them in reality. As a result, the brain's predictions become decoupled from the actual state of the world, leading to experiences that feel real, but lack an objective basis. Thus, what we classify as a hallucination can be viewed as a form of uncontrolled perception, where the brain's predictions run amok without sufficient sensory input to anchor them. In contrast, normal perception can be understood as a controlled form of hallucination. Our brains actively construct experiences while still tethered to the world through reliable sensory feedback. This perspective reshapes our understanding of perception and blurs the lines between what we consider real and unreal. It emphasizes the complex ways our brains interpret sensory information and construct our experiences, revealing that the processes behind both typical perception and hallucinations are more similar than we might have previously thought. While emphasizing the brain's active role in constructing our experiences, this perspective does not imply that nothing is real. To illustrate this, we can turn to the 17th century English philosopher John Locke, who distinguished between primary and secondary qualities. Primary qualities are characteristics of an object that exist independently of a perceiver. For example, the solidity of a bus or its occupancy of space remains constant, regardless of who is observing it. In contrast, secondary qualities depend on the observer's experience. Color serves as a prime example, as the redness of a bus may be perceived differently, based on lighting conditions and the observer's visual system. This distinction clarifies why viewing perception as a controlled hallucination does not warrant reckless behavior like jumping in front of a bus. The bus possesses primary qualities that exist outside of our perceptions, meaning it has an undeniable presence and the potential to cause harm. When we perceive the bus, it is our experience of it, how it appears to us, that reflects the brain's predictions and constructions. So, while the way the bus appears can be seen as a controlled hallucination, the bus itself, with its solid form and spatial presence, is very real, operating according to physical laws, independent of our perceptions. This nuanced understanding allows us to appreciate the complexity of our perceptual processes, without losing sight of the tangible reality we inhabit. A growing number of studies support the idea that perception can be understood as controlled hallucinations, or at least in broad terms. A notable example comes from a 2015 study conducted by Christoph Teufel and his colleagues at Cardiff University in Wales. In this study, researchers examined how patients with early-stage psychosis, individuals particularly susceptible to hallucinations, recognized so-called two-tone images. These images are designed to create ambiguity, allowing for multiple interpretations based on how they are perceived. The researchers found that patients with early-stage psychosis exhibited a different pattern of perception compared to healthy individuals. This discrepancy highlights how the perceptual processes in individuals prone to hallucinations can become disconnected from external reality, suggesting that their experiences are shaped more by internal predictions than by incoming sensory information. Essentially, these findings indicate that the brain's predictions can dominate perceptual experiences, leading to an increased likelihood of seeing something not necessarily grounded in the objective world. Such studies bolster the claim that perception involves a complex interplay between sensory inputs and internal expectations. They underscore the concept of controlled hallucination. While our brains actively construct perceptions based on prior knowledge and expectations, the ability to accurately interpret sensory information can falter when those predictions lack grounding, leading to a distorted perception of reality. Let's explore with a sample two-tone image. At first glance, you might see only a jumble of black and white splotches, seemingly lacking coherent structure. However, after looking at a second image, perhaps one that offers a clue or context, you might find your perception shifting dramatically. After viewing the second image, return to the first. What was once a chaotic assortment of shapes now reveals distinct objects and actions before your eyes. This transformation shows a fascinating aspect of perception. It is not merely a passive receipt of visual information, but an active, dynamic process influenced by context and expectation. This experience exemplifies how our brains construct meaning from sensory data, showcasing the predictive nature of perception. Initially, without context, our brains struggle to create a coherent interpretation of the splotches. But with additional information or cues, we can suddenly discern a structured reality, illustrating the power of top-down processing in shaping our experiences. But with additional information or cues, we can suddenly discern a structured reality, illustrating the power of top-down processing in shaping our experiences. In essence, this exercise serves as a compelling reminder that our perceptions are not fixed. They can be altered and refined based on the information we gather and the context in which we encounter it. It emphasizes that perception can be viewed as a controlled hallucination, where our expectations and prior knowledge guide us in making sense of the world around us. What's truly remarkable about this exercise is that during your second examination of the first image, the sensory signals reaching your eyes have not changed at all from your initial viewing. The same black and white splotches remain, presenting the same visual information. However, what has transformed is your brain's predictions regarding the causes of those sensory signals. This shift highlights the incredible power of our brains to create meaning from what we see. When you look at the image again, you have developed a new, high-level perceptual expectation based on the context provided by the second image. This expectation acts like a lens through which you interpret the sensory data, altering your conscious perception of the first image. In essence, this exercise beautifully illustrates how perception is not simply about what is present in the environment, but is largely influenced by our cognitive processes and prior knowledge. Our brains are continuously making predictions and updating them based on incoming information. When these predictions change, so does our experience of reality. This phenomenon emphasizes the idea that perception is an active, constructive process, rather than a mere reflection of the external world. It reveals that what we see is deeply intertwined with our mental frameworks and expectations, further supporting the notion of perception as a controlled hallucination. The brain does not just passively register information. It interprets, infers, and actively shapes our understanding of the world around us. What's truly remarkable about this exercise is that during your second examination of the first image, the sensory signals reaching your eyes have not changed at all from your initial viewing. The same black and white splotches remain, presenting the same visual information. However, what has transformed is your brain's predictions regarding the causes of those sensory signals. This shift highlights the incredible power of our brains to create meaning from what we see. When you look at the image again, you have developed a new high-level perceptual expectation based on the context provided by the second image. This expectation acts like a lens through which you interpret the sensory data, altering your conscious perception of the first image. In essence, this exercise beautifully illustrates how perception is not simply about what is present in the environment, but is largely influenced by our cognitive processes and prior knowledge. Our brains are continuously making predictions and updating them based on incoming information. When these predictions change, so does our experience of reality. This phenomenon emphasizes the idea that perception is an active, constructive process rather than a mere reflection of the external world. It reveals that what we see is deeply intertwined with our mental frameworks and expectations, further supporting the notion of perception as a controlled hallucination. The brain does not just passively register information. It interprets, infers, and actively shapes our understanding of the world around us. When individuals are shown a series of two-tone images followed by their corresponding full pictures, many find they can identify a significant number of these two-tone images afterward, though not all. In Christoph Teufel's study, an intriguing finding emerged. Participants with early-stage psychosis demonstrated an increased ability to recognize these two-tone images after viewing the full images compared to healthy control subjects. This observation suggests that those prone to hallucinations are more significantly influenced by perceptual priors, those mental frameworks and expectations we use to interpret sensory information. Essentially, their perceptions are more heavily influenced by prior knowledge or expectations, allowing them to make sense of ambiguous images more effectively than those without such tendencies. This phenomenon aligns perfectly with the hypothesis that hallucinations in psychosis result from an overweighting of these perceptual priors. For individuals experiencing psychosis, these priors can overshadow sensory prediction errors, the discrepancies between what the brain expects to see and what is actually present in the environment. When perceptual priors dominate, the result can be a disconnect between perception and objective reality, leading to experiences that feel real but are not grounded in sensory input. This finding enriches our understanding of the mechanisms underlying perception and hallucinations, emphasizing how our brains utilize prior experiences to navigate ambiguous stimuli. It also illustrates the dynamic nature of perception, where expectations and interpretations can significantly shape what we see, sometimes distorting our relationship with the world. Recent research has uncovered further insights into the complex dynamics of perception and its relationship to controlled hallucinations. A notable study in 2021, conducted by Biu He and her colleagues at New York University, involved neurosurgical patients shown ambiguous images, such as a Necker cube. This classic optical illusion continuously flips between two different appearances, despite the sensory input remaining unchanged. By meticulously analyzing the brain signals recorded from these patients, the researchers made fascinating observations. They found that when the perceived appearance of the Necker cube aligned with the patient's existing biases or expectations, the flow of information in the brain predominantly occurred in a top-down, inside-out direction. This aligns with the concept that strong perceptual predictions can influence how we interpret sensory information, effectively shaping our perceptions in ways that support our existing beliefs. Conversely, when the perceived appearance of the cube did not match the patient's pre-existing biases, the information flow shifted. In these cases, it was more robust in a bottom-up direction, indicating a prediction error signal. This suggests that when sensory data conflict with our expectations, our brains actively process this discrepancy to recalibrate our understanding of the world. These findings represent an exciting advancement in mapping the brain's mechanisms underlying controlled hallucinations. They provide concrete evidence of how perceptual predictions and sensory data interact within the brain, illustrating the fluidity of perception as a dynamic interplay between top-down expectations and bottom-up sensory information. This research not only enhances our understanding of normal perceptual processes, but also sheds light on the experiences of individuals prone to hallucinations, emphasizing the importance of predictive processes in shaping our subjective realities. Some researchers have taken a fresh approach to exploring the intricate nature of perception and hallucination. Instead of directly examining the brain's inner workings, they opted to simulate the effects of overactive perceptual priors through a unique virtual reality setup crafted by the talented VR guru Keisuke Suzuki. They affectionately refer to this innovative device as the hallucination machine, a name chosen with a playful wink. The hallucination machine allows them to create immersive environments that manipulate the visual and auditory stimuli participants experience, effectively pushing the boundaries of their perceptual expectations. By carefully controlling the sensory inputs, they simulate conditions under which individuals might experience heightened perceptual priors, akin to those seen in hallucinatory experiences. In this virtual world, participants may encounter familiar objects or scenes, subtly altered or presented in ways that defy their expectations. The results can be both surprising and revealing. offering insights into how our brains construct reality based on prior knowledge and experiences. This creative experiment not only enhances our understanding of the mechanisms behind perception and hallucination, but also serves as a fascinating platform for examining how altering sensory inputs can lead to shifts in perception. It's an exciting frontier in the study of the mind, blending cutting-edge technology with deep philosophical questions about the nature of reality and our place within it. Using a 360-degree camera, they initiated a fascinating experiment, capturing panoramic video footage of a bustling square on the University of Sussex campus during a typical lunchtime. This lively scene, filled with students and activities, served as our canvas. After obtaining the raw footage, they processed it through an algorithm inspired by Google's AI program Deep Dream to generate a simulated hallucination. Here's where it gets fascinating. The algorithm operates by utilizing a neural network, a fundamental component of AI technology. Instead of running the network in the usual forward direction, they reverse the process. Typically, these networks are trained to identify and classify objects in images. However, by running it backward and updating the input rather than the output, they allowed the network to project its thoughts about what it believes is present in the scene onto the footage. The result? The algorithm's predictions began to overwhelm the original sensory inputs captured by the camera. This shift tipped the balance of perceptual best guessing firmly in favor of the network's expectations. Our particular neural network was particularly adept at recognizing different breeds of dogs. As a result, the video became whimsically infused with dog presences, creating an altered reality where canines appeared to be present in every corner of the footage. This playful manipulation of perception allows them to explore how our brains can be influenced by predictions and expectations. By observing how the original footage is transformed through this algorithmic lens, they gain valuable insights into the nature of perception and the ways in which our minds create meaning from sensory inputs. As you watch the video, take a moment to reflect on your own experiences of perception. Have you ever encountered something in your environment that seemed to morph or shift based on your expectations? This is a phenomenon that all of us experience at some point, a reminder of the dynamic interplay between perception, cognition, and reality. By utilizing advanced technology and innovative approaches like the hallucination machine, we continue to explain the complexities of perception and hallucination, fostering a deeper understanding of how our minds navigate the world around us. While the hallucination machine offers a fascinating experience, participants remain acutely aware that what they are encountering is not real. Despite the significant advancements in virtual reality technology and computer graphics, no existing VR setup has yet reached a level of immersion that makes an experience indistinguishable from reality. This presents an intriguing challenge, which researchers at Sussex embraced when designing a new substitutional reality setup. Their project coincided with a significant moment in history, when Pope Francis convened a retreat with Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. The team's ambitious goal was to create a system that allowed volunteers to experience an environment so convincingly real that they believed it was real, even though it was entirely fabricated. To achieve this, they sought to manipulate the immersive qualities of the VR environment, creating a sense of presence that felt authentic to participants. This involved not just advanced visual and auditory cues, but also integrating tactile feedback, environmental factors, and social interactions to enhance the illusion of reality. By tapping into the workings of the brain, the researchers aim to blur the lines between the virtual and the actual, allowing individuals to form genuine emotional connections to experiences presented in this constructed environment. In doing so, they opened a new frontier in the exploration of perception. By investigating how the brain constructs beliefs about what is real, they hope to uncover profound insights into the mechanisms of perception itself. The implications of this research extend beyond the realms of VR and cognitive science, prompting us to reconsider the nature of reality and how we navigate our experiences within it. The concept behind the substitutional reality setup is elegantly simple, yet technically challenging. The researchers began by pre-recording panoramic video footage of the interior of the VR lab, capturing the space as it truly is. When participants arrived, they were invited to sit on a stool in the center of the room and were fitted with a VR headset equipped with a front-facing camera. Once the headset was on, they were encouraged to explore their surroundings, looking around the room as it existed in reality, with the camera relaying a live feed to them. However, without prior notice, the researchers subtly switched the feed from the live, real-world scene to the pre-recorded panoramic video. Remarkably, most participants continued to perceive what they saw as real, even though they were now viewing a pre-recorded version of the room. Executing this transition successfully is far more complex than it appears. Every detail matters. Lighting, shadows, and spatial dynamics must seamlessly match between the live feed and the video to maintain the illusion. By crafting this experience, the researchers explored the boundaries of perception and reality, investigating the relationship between what we see and how we interpret those visual signals. This experiment not only tests the limits of VR technology, but also raises intriguing questions about how our brains process and construct the reality we believe in. Researchers found these results fascinating because they suggest a remarkable capability of the human brain: the ability to experience an unreal environment as if it were fully real. This discovery not only opens new frontiers for virtual reality research, but also prompts us to rethink the very nature of perception itself. With this setup, we can study the limits of what people will accept as reality and explore how these experiences shape their perceptions. One of the most interesting questions we sought to answer through these experiments was whether participants would struggle to detect unexpected changes in the environment when they believed what they were experiencing was genuine. If the findings support our hypothesis, they would provide compelling evidence that the perception of reality acts as a high-level prior. This means that believing something is real can significantly influence our perceptual best guesses, ultimately shaping what we perceive. For instance, when you walk into a room and your brain is convinced it's a real environment, your attention and awareness are aligned with that belief. You may overlook unexpected changes or anomalies, because your brain prioritizes the coherent narrative of reality that it has constructed. This phenomenon could be linked to the brain's predictive mechanisms, where the strength of belief in reality alters how effectively we notice discrepancies in our sensory input. By examining this relationship between belief and perception, we can gain deeper insights into the cognitive processes that underpin how we engage with the world. Such research may have broader implications beyond virtual reality game, potentially informing our understanding of perceptual disorders, attention, and even the psychological impacts of immersive environments. This journey into the uncharted territory of perception and belief promises to reshape our understanding of reality itself. The idea that the world we perceive might not be real has fascinated humanity for centuries, echoing through philosophical debates, science fiction narratives, and even casual late-night conversations. A prime example is The Matrix, where Neo's choice to take the red pill reveals a startling truth. The world he perceives is merely a sophisticated simulation, while his physical body lies dormant, serving as an energy source for a dystopian AI. This is a modern reinterpretation of the ancient brain-in-a-vat thought experiment. Philosopher Nick Bostrom's simulation argument further develops this intriguing notion. Bostrom, from the University of Oxford, posits that we might be living in a highly advanced computer simulation created by a future post-human civilization. His argument hinges on the assumption that if future societies can create such intricate simulations, the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber actual ones, making it statistically likely that we are experiencing a simulation. While this theory has sparked significant debate, I contend that one of its key premises, namely that consciousness can be simulated, may not hold up. The leap from mimicking the behaviors and environments of conscious beings to truly replicating consciousness is a daunting one. Consciousness is not merely a computational function. It arises from the unique biological, chemical, and electrical properties of the human brain. The subjective experience, the hard problem of consciousness, as philosopher David Chalmers describes it, may not be something algorithms can capture or replicate regardless of their complexity. Nonetheless, the simulation hypothesis forces us to confront profound questions about the nature of existence. Are our perceptions merely digital constructs? If they are, what implications does this have for our notions of free will, ethics, and the meaning we derive from our experiences? Even if we reject the idea of living in a simulation, reflecting on the limitations of our perception and the potential for alternative realities encourages us to delve deeper into the nature of human consciousness and our relationship with the world. Regardless of the validity of Bostrom's argument, it is evident that our understanding of reality, much like Neo's, remains inherently fragile, influenced by the intricate dance of perception, belief, and sensory information. While these philosophical musings can be both engaging and intellectually stimulating, they often lead to the sobering conclusion that some questions may elude definitive answers. Instead, our focus has been on the nuanced relationship between appearance and reality in terms of our conscious perceptions. A crucial aspect of this exploration is the very nature of reality itself, how the world appears and feels to us. Our perceptions are not mere reflections of an objective world. They are active constructions shaped by our beliefs, experiences, and neurological processes. What we deem real is deeply intertwined with how our brains interpret sensory data. Our perception is influenced by countless factors, including the predictability of sensory inputs and our past experiences, culminating in a rich tapestry of conscious experience that feels overwhelmingly authentic. As we navigate this complex interplay, we uncover a fascinating truth. Our sense of reality is a layered phenomenon, existing within the realm of subjective experience. Each individual grapples with the nuances of what it means for something to be real, raising profound questions about the nature of reality and the extent to which it can be understood. Ultimately, while we may not unravel the metaphysical mysteries surrounding existence, our journey through the landscape of perception offers valuable insights. By examining how we construct our realities, we deepen our understanding of ourselves, our consciousness, and the myriad ways we engage with the world. At the heart of this discussion lies the idea that perception is not merely a passive recreation of the external world within our minds. Rather, it is an active, interpretative process designed to facilitate adaptive interactions with our environment. The contents of our perceptual experiences can be viewed as controlled hallucinations, brain-generated best guesses regarding the elusive and ultimately unknowable causes of the sensory signals that bombard us. For most of us, these perceptual constructions feel undeniably real. They guide our actions, shape our interactions, and influence our understanding of the world. As Canadian rapper and science communicator Baba Brinkman aptly points out, when we collectively agree on these hallucinations, perhaps that is what we define as reality. This perspective invites us to rethink our assumptions about perception and reality. If our perceptions are shaped by a complex interplay of neural processes and shared experiences, then reality itself transforms into a social construct, a tapestry woven from the threads of individual and collective interpretations. This shift in understanding transcends mere neuroscience or psychology. It opens avenues for exploring our relationships with one another and the environment. It encourages us to embrace the richness and complexity of our perceptual worlds, recognizing that perceiving is an intricate dance between our brains, bodies, and the realities we co-create. Ultimately, this understanding may lead to a profound appreciation for the shared nature of our experiences and the intricate web of connections that bind us together in a common reality. However, it is vital to acknowledge that our perceptions do not always align, and there are moments when we may perceive things as lacking reality. Individuals with dissociative psychiatric conditions, such as derealization or depersonalization syndrome, often report a sense of estrangement from both the world and themselves, rendering everyday experiences alien and unrecognizable. Similarly, certain types of hallucinations, like psychedelic experiences, often blur the boundary between vivid perception and a sense of unreality. During such episodes, individuals may find themselves immersed in strikingly vivid experiences while simultaneously recognizing that these do not reflect external reality. The same applies to lucid dreaming, where dreamers are aware they are dreaming and can manipulate their environment, yet the intensity of the experiences feels remarkably real. Moreover, people with synesthesia often report additional sensory experiences, such as seeing colors when viewing black letters. While these perceptions are genuine and consistent for them, they also recognize that these added dimensions do not exist in the external world. Even in our daily lives, our perceptions can betray us. For example, looking directly at the sun can create an after-image on the retina, an experience that is vivid yet ephemeral and recognized as a distortion of reality. These varied experiences illustrate the intricate complexity of perception. They reveal that our interactions with the world are shaped not only by our brain's predictions, but also by individual psychological states and conditions. Thus, while many of us may generally agree on our perceptual experiences, a vast spectrum of realities exists, each shaped by our unique neurophysiological makeup, psychological conditions, and cultural contexts. By understanding perception as a process capable of yielding both vivid and distorted experiences, we gain deeper insights into the nature of reality itself. This recognition invites exploration of the richness of human experience, the diversity of our perceptual worlds, and the myriad ways we navigate the complex terrain of reality. Ultimately, it encourages us to embrace the notion that reality is not monolithic, but rather a multifaceted tapestry woven from our individual and collective perceptions. This suggests that the sense of realness accompanying most of our perceptions should not be taken for granted. Instead, it serves as another facet of how our brains arrive at Bayesian best guesses regarding the causes of sensory inputs. This leads us to ponder, what purpose does this sense of realness serve? One possible answer is that a perceptual best guess that embodies the property of being real is generally more effective in guiding our behavior than one that lacks this quality. For instance, perceiving a coffee cup as genuinely present enables us to interact with it appropriately, perhaps to pick it up for a sip. Similarly, when we perceive an approaching bus as real, we instinctively recognize the need to step back to ensure our safety. The same applies to interpreting our partner's emotional state. Sensing their feelings as genuinely real allows us to respond with empathy and understanding. Experiencing something as real enhances our ability to navigate the world effectively. It enables us to respond appropriately to our environment, facilitating interactions that align with our goals and needs. This adaptive function of perception underscores the significance of our brain's predictive capabilities as they construct our perceptual experiences to maximize our chances of survival and social cohesion. This understanding encourages us to appreciate the complexity of perception and the subtle nuances that inform our experiences of reality. It underscores that our perceptions are not passive reflections of an objective world, but active constructions shaped by our brain's interpretations. Ultimately, this perspective invites us to reflect on how our brains craft a sense of reality, allowing us to engage meaningfully with our environment and one another. However, this heightened sense of realness comes with a trade-off. A striking illustration of this is found in the viral dress illusion, which captivated the internet when people were divided over the color of a dress, some insisting it was white and gold, while others perceived it as blue and black. This phenomenon suggests that when we perceive something as real, we may become less aware of how our perceptual worlds can differ significantly from those of others. One popular explanation posits that those who spend most of their time in bright, natural daylight are more likely to see the dress as white and gold, while night owls, predominantly exposed to artificial light, interpret it as blue and black. These seemingly minor differences can become entrenched over time. As we encounter new information, we tend to select sensory data that aligns with our existing models of the world, reinforcing our perceptions. This selective gathering of information can lead to increasingly polarized views, much like the echo chambers found in social media and the selective consumption of news outlets. I propose that this same principle operates at a more fundamental level. Beneath our socio-political beliefs, it may extend to the very fabric of our perceptual realities. In fact, this process might even influence our perception of self, our experience of being me in the world, leading to deeply entrenched biases toward perceiving oneself as inherently real while viewing others as mere figments of our imagination. Thus, we are led to the notion that while we strive to see ourselves as authentic, we simultaneously perceive others as being less real. Yet, despite these biases, our perceptual worlds remain profoundly interconnected. We continuously co-create reality with others, weaving together the intricate web of shared experiences, beliefs, and perceptions. This shared reality serves as the foundation for our social interactions, shaping our sense of identity, community, and belonging. In light of these insights, it is evident that perception plays a pivotal role in how we navigate the world, both individually and collectively. Our perceptions are not isolated phenomena, they are deeply intertwined with our social, cultural, and environmental contexts. Understanding the dynamic nature of perception allows us to engage more empathetically with others, recognizing the diversity of perceptual experiences and the myriad ways we interpret reality. Ultimately, this exploration of perception invites us to embrace the complexity of human experience. It encourages us to reflect on the interplay between our individual and collective realities, fostering a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationships with others. By acknowledging the richness of our perceptual worlds, we gain valuable insights into the nature of reality and the profound connections that bind us together in a shared human experience. In conclusion, the world as we know it is shaped by our perceptions, which are active constructions of the brain. Our sense of reality emerges from the brain's predictions, guiding our behavior and facilitating our interactions with the world. However, this sense of realness can also lead to differences in perception, as illustrated by the viral dress illusion. By understanding how our brains craft our sense of reality, we can appreciate the complexity of perception and the diversity of our perceptual experiences.